I honestly don't know why I didn't try this earlier. It's such a simple solution. I'm Kirsty Rebecca and I create drawing and painting tutorials that are easy to follow so that you can create realistic and professional artwork even if you're just starting out. If you've tried to find the perfect black paper for your drawings but they're either not great quality, you can't get the amount of layers that you need, or they're just a dark grey and not actually black at all, then you're not alone. What if I told you that you can create an intense black background on your favourite drawing paper really easily? I've tried many different techniques in the past for creating black backgrounds for both pastel and for coloured pencil. And if you're drawing with pastels, you may be thinking, why can't you just use black pastel? And yes, I have done this on many occasions actually, but it can get super messy. And one of the main problems that I have with this is that you end up with black pastel smudges in areas of the main subject. And that can be a problem for subjects that you want to be really bright and vivid, or white subjects, for example. And if you've ever tried to create an intense and smooth black background with coloured pencil, you'll know that it can take a lot of work. It's usually pretty dull looking and there are almost always those unwanted pencil strokes showing through. So I've come up with a solution that I think will solve your problem of creating dark black backgrounds on your favourite papers for coloured pencil and for pastel. So this magical thing is called gouache. This paint is kind of like watercolour, but it's not transparent, so it's got that really opaque finish which gets great coverage and it actually dries matte without any kind of shine to it. I first came across this idea when I saw a pastel artist use it as an underpainting on some tiger stripes instead of using black pastel. And the reason that they did this is because if you add lighter coloured pastel on top of black, it tends to mix in with the black pastel and create sort of like a dulled down version of the colour that you actually want. So if you paint some black gouache down first, you can actually come over that with vibrant colours without mixing with any of that black pastel. And then I thought, well, why can't I use this black gouache to cover my entire surface to work on top of that? The paper that I usually use for pastels is Clairefontaine Pastel Mat, but I also use that a lot for coloured pencil drawings. So I decided to try this technique on a white flower that I was about to do in pastels. So this piece here is actually from a few years ago, and I decided I didn't want to do that drawing anymore, but I just couldn't remove the outline, so I just thought I'd give it a shot on this so that I didn't waste my pastel mat. Keep in mind that you can only do this on papers that can take wet mediums, and a lot of coloured pencil artists use watercolour paper, which will work with gouache nicely as well. So just make sure that whatever paper you're using is able to take those wet mediums, otherwise it may ruin your paper. The trick is to apply the gouache in light layers with a lot of water to dilute it, so it really sinks into the pastel mat or the watercolour paper and doesn't leave lumpy bits or brush strokes. Another important tip to make sure that you don't leave brush strokes is to actually use a large watercolour brush and just go up and down in one direction or side to side in one direction and then let it dry. And then just apply a few more thin layers with alternating brushstroke directions so that there won't be any visible strokes in the end. You want to make sure that you build up your layers lightly until you have that intense black that you're happy with. Make sure that you tape your artwork down if you're working on a watercolour paper or pastel mat sheets, because the paper will warp when you add the water. So by taping it down, it will help make it dry nice and flat. The pastel mat that I'm painting on in this tutorial is actually mounted, so it's a rigid surface which doesn't actually need to be taped down. That's why I haven't got tape around my piece, but I do recommend doing that for yours. And you could also use any other colour of gouache to create any background that you desire. This would be super helpful for things like pet portraits where the owner wants a specific colour, or you want to start with a colour that complements your subject, or you could create a really nice painterly background with different colours in it if you want to, or you could use it for your entire underpainting. So there's a lot of potential for experimentation here as well. There are a lot of other tips that I've discovered over the years while working with pastel, and some of them have been super helpful in saving time, saving money, and avoiding those really big mistakes that people make. So in that top left corner, I've created that tutorial so that you can avoid making those big mistakes that I made when I first started with pastel. So click on that and I'll see you over there.